You drill a dozen holes, you meticulously set your tip-ups exactly 2 feet off the bottom, just like the old-timers taught you, and then you wait and you wait. The silence on the ice is deafening. Sound familiar? What if I told you that 90% of the time, the pike are right under you, but you're fishing in a completely empty zone? The biggest secret about midwinter pike isn't about location, it's not about bait. It's about a specific behavior almost everyone ignores. Stay with me, because I'm about to show you the real reason your flags aren't flying, and how one small, simple change in your thinking can turn your entire ice fishing season around. Before we get into it, let me ask you this, and be honest. Have you ever just packed it in early, convinced the pike simply weren't hungry that day? You're going to want to hear this. Every ice angler knows the feeling. First ice is chaos, a feeding frenzy, but then January hits, the snow gets deep, the cold settles in, and the bite just dies. This is what we call the midwinter slump, or gasp, the dead of winter. The common wisdom we all hear is that the pike's metabolism has slowed to a crawl. They become lethargic, lazy, and just sit on the bottom in the deepest part of the lake, waiting for an easy meal to drift by. So we follow that advice. We find the deepest hole, we soak a big dead bait right on the bottom, and we practice our patience. We do this because it's what we've always done. It's the de facto method passed down for generations. But this method is based on a half-truth, and that's exactly why so many of us end up staring at still flags for 8 hours straight. Let's start by tearing down the biggest myth of all, the idea that winter pike are just lazy, motionless logs waiting to die. It's easy to believe, right? The water is cold, everything slows down, but calling a pike lazy is a massive misunderstanding of what's actually happening. A pike is a perfect predator, an apex machine that has evolved over millions of years to survive these exact conditions. It's not lazy. It is a supreme master of energy conservation. Think of it like a highly trained sniper, not a bouncer at a nightclub. A sniper doesn't run around wasting energy. He finds a strategic position and waits, using the absolute minimum amount of effort for the maximum result. This shift in thinking from lazy to ultra-efficient is the first key you need to unlock this puzzle. So if they're not lazy, what are they? They're energy accountants, and they are stingy. Every single movement a pike makes in 34-degree water is a calculated withdrawal from its energy bank. Its metabolism has slowed so much that digesting a meal is a huge caloric expense. Therefore, it will not, under any circumstances, waste energy chasing something that isn't a guaranteed return on its investment. This is why you can drop a lively bait right in front of its face and it won't even flinch. It's not that it isn't hungry, it's that the cost of attacking and digesting that meal might be higher than the energy it provides. This is the biological reality we are up against. We aren't trying to tempt a hungry fish. We are trying to present an irresistible business proposition to a ruthless accountant. This brings us to the mistake we all make, the one baked into decades of fishing lore. We hear energy conservation and we immediately picture a fish lying motionless on the lakebed in 30 feet of water. We visualize it pinned to the mud, not moving a single fin for hours on end. It's a simple, logical image, but it's fundamentally flawed because it ignores the single most important factor in a predator's life, the location of its food. A pike cannot afford to park itself in a food desert, no matter how much energy it saves by staying still. It has to be in a position to capitalize on the easiest possible meal. And that easy meal is almost never sitting on the bottom with it. This is where the whole system we've been taught begins to fall apart. Now let's think about the other side of the equation. Let's talk about the bait fish. Whether it's perch, shiners, ciscos, or crappies, what are they doing in the dead of winter? Are they all schooling on the bottom? Absolutely not. Their behavior is dictated by two things: their own food source, which is often zooplankton, and dissolved oxygen levels. Both of these things create layers in the water column. Plankton will rise and fall based on sunlight penetration, even through the ice and snow. The baitfish will follow. This means the prime feeding zone for a pike is often not a piece of structure, but a band of water suspended somewhere between the ice and the lakebed. The food is mobile and it moves vertically. And this leads us, finally, to the great secret itself. The key to winter pike behavior is not horizontal movement, but vertical movement. While we are busy running and gunning, drilling holes from one point to another across the lake, the pike are often staying in one general area, but they are slowly, almost imperceptibly, moving up and down in the water column throughout the day. They aren't chasing the baitfish, they are simply adjusting their own position to stay just below that band of life, waiting for one to make a mistake. They are using the vertical axis of the lake as their hunting ground, and we are almost exclusively fishing the horizontal one. It's like we're playing chess, but we don't even know the bishop can move diagonally. I want you to picture this. Imagine the water column is an elevator in a tall building. The baitfish are on the 10th floor. The old school method tells you to get in the elevator and go straight to the basement, because that's where the pike is supposed to be. So you sit there in the dark, waiting. But the pike isn't in the basement. He's quietly taken the elevator up to the 9th floor, and he's just hanging out there, right below the action, waiting for someone to drop their lunch. He's suspended, he's waiting, and you are 15, maybe 20 feet below him, completely out of the game. You're in the right building, but you're on the wrong floor. This happens every single day, on every single lake. So how does this play out in a real-world scenario? Let's say you're on the ice at 8 in the morning. It's low light. The plankton and the baitfish that feed on them are holding deeper in the water column, maybe 15 feet down over a 30-foot basin. The pike are suspended just below them at, say, 18 feet. You arrive, set your tip-ups 2 feet off the bottom, and you might actually be in the zone. You might get a morning bite, but then the sun gets higher. The plankton rises to 10 feet down to catch the light. The baitfish follow, and that big pike? It doesn't swim around, it just slowly adjusts its buoyancy and drifts up to suspend at 12 feet. Your bait is now 16 feet below it. It might as well be on the moon. This is why so many winter pike days start with a flurry of action and then die completely. It's not because the pike suddenly stopped feeding, it's because the bite window moved and you didn't move with it. You stayed anchored to the bottom while the entire ecosystem shifted 10 feet above your head. This vertical migration is the rhythm of the winter lake. The anglers who understand this rhythm are the ones who consistently catch fish, even in the middle of February. They aren't fishing spots, they're fishing depths. And they are constantly willing to adjust those depths throughout the day, chasing that invisible band of life, not a waypoint on their GPS. So what's the practical application here? It means you have to stop thinking of your tip-up as a set it and forget it tool. At a bare minimum, you need to stagger your depths. If you're setting out 6 lines over a 30-foot weed edge, don't put them all 2 feet off the bottom. Set one at 2 feet, set another at 5 feet off, set one 10 feet off the bottom. Heck, set one just 10 feet under the ice. You are not just covering the structure on the bottom anymore, you are trying to find the strike zone within the entire water column. You're using your tip-ups like a net to intercept fish moving up and down. And this is where your electronics become your most powerful weapon, but you have to use them differently. Most ice anglers use their flasher to find the bottom, check the depth, and maybe mark a fish they see near their lure. That's fine, but in midwinter you need to become a hunter of suspended marks. You need to drop your transducer in the hole and just watch. Look for those faint, flickering lines 10, 15, or 20 feet down. Most people dismiss this as interference or a cloud of tiny baitfish not worth their time. That is a colossal mistake. That cloud is the entire reason the pike is in the area. Finding that suspended bait is more important than finding the steepest drop-off. Let me tell you about a time this completely changed my day. I was marking absolutely nothing on the bottom of a basin. It looked like a desert. I was about to move, but I left my flasher running as I packed up a rod. I glanced down and saw a faint, thin red line flickering about 12 feet down over 40 feet of water. It didn't look like a fish, it looked like nothing. On a whim, I reeled my jig up to just above it to 10 feet. I held it there. For 2 solid minutes, nothing happened. Then, out of the bottom, a massive red band appeared and started rising, slowly. It was a giant pike coming up from the depths to investigate. It rose 28 feet to crush my jig. If I had kept fishing the bottom, I never would have known it existed. This completely changes your jigging strategy too. We're all taught to pound the bottom, puffing up silt to attract fish. In midwinter, that can be useless. Instead, try starting your jigging sequence just below the ice. Work your way down in 5-foot increments. Spend a few minutes at each depth, using subtle movements, just quivering the bait. You are searching the water column. You're trying to place your lure in that suspended highway where the pike are cruising. The bite, when it comes, often won't be a violent strike. It will just feel heavy, like you've snagged a wet sock. That's the sign of an energy-conserving pike simply inhaling the bait with minimal effort. Another crucial tip is to read the bite on your tip-ups. A classic bottom-oriented pike bite often results in a screaming flag. The fish grabs the bait and makes a powerful run along the structure. But a suspended pike bite is different. The fish is often facing upward. It will slowly rise, gently take the bait, and then just sit there, or slowly sink back to its cruising depth. This results in a very different signal at the tip-up. The flag might just pop up and sit there. The spool might not turn at all, or it might turn 1 or 2 clicks and stop. Most anglers see this and think it was a wind flag or a minnow trip. They reset it and miss their chance. Always treat a weak flag as a fish. When you get one of those weak flags, your approach needs to be different. Don't run over and rip the line to set the hook. That pike is likely just sitting there, holding the bait in its mouth, deciding if it's worth the effort to swallow. Walk over calmly. Gently lift the tip up from the holder. Feel for any weight or tension on the line. If you feel anything, just a slight heaviness, slowly begin to reel in the slack. When the line is tight, use a long, sweeping hook set, not a violent jerk. You are driving the hook home on a fish that might be facing directly towards you, or even straight up and down. It's a finesse game, not a power game. Think about the classic community fishing spots. Why do they sometimes produce and sometimes fail miserably? It's often because the spot itself, the underwater point or the deep hole, is only part of the equation. Those spots are good because they consistently hold baitfish, but if the baitfish are suspended 20 feet over that point and everyone is fishing 2 feet off the bottom, the entire crowd is going to blank. The one guy who shows up ignores the crowd and sets a tip up 10 feet under the ice in the middle of nowhere might be the only one to catch a fish. He's not fishing the spot, he's fishing the zone. This also explains why certain times of day are better than others. Those low light periods at dawn and dusk are prime time for a reason. During these transitions, the baitfish are often moving vertically, either up or down, to adjust into the changing light. This movement makes them more vulnerable. The pike know this. They hold at a strategic depth and wait for the dinner bell to ring, which in this case is the daily vertical migration of their food. They are ambushing the baitfish as they travel between their daytime and nighttime depths. Your job is to figure out where that intersection is and park your bait right in the middle of it. So how do you put this all together on your next trip? It starts before you even drill a hole. Look at your lake map. Instead of just looking for sharp drop-offs, look for broad, deep basins adjacent to those drop-offs. These basins are where baitfish will often suspend in huge schools. This is your primary search area. Your goal isn't just to find the structure, it's to find where the baitfish are staging in the open water nearby. That's where the big, efficient pike will be waiting, conserving energy until an easy meal presents itself. When you start drilling, commit to exploring the vertical. Drill a line of 3 holes. In the first, set a dead bait 2 feet off the bottom. In the second, set one at the halfway point in the water column. In the third, set one just 10 feet below the ice. Then take your flasher and actively jig in other holes, constantly searching for those suspended marks. Don't get emotionally attached to the bottom. The bottom is just one of many potential strike zones. Your job is to systematically eliminate water until you find the active layer. It's more work, but it's the difference between hoping for a bite and making a bite happen. This approach also requires a change in bait. While a big, dead sucker on the bottom is great for a lazy-looking presentation, a lively shiner or a smaller sucker suspended higher up can be more effective. That little bit of movement and flash can be just enough to catch the eye of a pike looking up from below. It represents that vulnerable, struggling baitfish that the pike is programmed to eat. For jigging, baits that have a slow, spiraling fall, like a Rapala jigging wrap or a spoon, are perfect for targeting these suspended fish. They stay in the strike zone longer and call fish in from a distance. Ultimately, the great secret is this. Stop thinking about pike as a fish that lives on the bottom. Start thinking of them as a fish that lives in the water. The entire column is their home and their hunting ground. We've been conditioned to stare at a two-dimensional map looking for spots. But the pike are living and hunting in a three-dimensional world. The moment you stop being an X and Y angler and start becoming an X, Y, and Z angler is the moment the dead of winter stops being a slump and starts being an opportunity. You're not just fishing anymore, you're solving a puzzle. And the biggest piece was hiding in plain sight right above your bait the entire time. So, let's bring it all home. The single biggest reason you're not catching pike in the dead of winter is because we've all been sold a lie. The lie is that they are lazy and live on the bottom. The truth is, they are incredibly efficient predators that follow their food source vertically throughout the water column. The plot twist here is that you might be sitting on top of a massive school of fish, but your bait is hanging in a barren wasteland 20 feet below them. Your whole strategy needs to shift from finding a spot to finding the depth. This changes everything. It changes how you use your electronics, how you set your tip-ups, and how you jig. You stop waiting for the fish to come to you and you start actively hunting them in their three-dimensional world. Thank you so much for watching and for being willing to challenge the old ways of thinking. If this gave you a new perspective, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise. Now I want to hear from you. What is the single biggest old-timer fishing tip that you've discovered just doesn't work in the modern day? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's talk about it.